Take one, let's talk about Pokemon Majin forms in Winds and Waves. Let's get right into it. So ladies and gentlemen, if you guys do not know, Pokemon Winds and Waves, with their announcement, didn't include a lot of details, but we do know a lot of details because of a bunch of the leaks in the past. Now, one of the things, if you guys do not know, I've spoken about this a few times already, and I might be able to show you guys what I'm talking about just really quickly here on screen so you know what the subject matter is, but we do know that there is this thing called these Majin forms, right? So Majin forms are essentially supposed to be the next gimmick, or Majin as a mechanic is supposed to be the next gimmick for Pokemon Winds and Pokemon Waves, and I've already spoken about it a little bit in an entire video I already made. I say a little bit, I actually spoke about it a lot, and if you guys do not know it, it's basically this ID right here. So a newly surfaced GIF showcasing a gameplay gimmick. Internally, it's codenamed as Majin. The gimmick appears to be linked to weather-based moves or effects. You can see a Pikachu sort of bubbling around right down there, but we have a bunch of theories and rumors and speculations and things of that nature that I want to look into because we already know some of the stuff about there being research labs for these that you go to, like a fire one, ice one, ground one, rock, and psychic. However, here's some interesting details that people have noticed. Like, for example, Soul Silver says, kind of hilarious that these have a similar vibe since Pokemon Winds and Waves gimmick is codenamed Majin. So, if you guys do not know, this right here, this logo, this is a logo that is most likely going to be related to the Majin gimmick, right? Or the next gimmick of the game, whatever it's going to be called. Majin is just a code name. It could be a completely different name when the game actually gets announced. But this logo can be found, or this icon, sorry, can be found in the Japanese logos of Pokemon Winds and Waves. We know this because it's already been proven that every time one of these icons like this, one of these like little weird extra things are added, they are a representation of the gimmick of that said game. We know this because the Mega Stone is in the Japanese Pokemon logo for Pokemon X and Y. We know that the Z Crystal is in the Japanese logo for Pokemon Sun and Moon. We know that the Terra Crystals, I think, are also in the Japanese one. And a form of Dynamaxing, like a hint to Dynamaxing, is in the Japanese logo of Sun and Moon. So all of those usually get hinted at somewhat in the Japanese logos, and this is the icon that was seen right there. Now, he's saying here that it kind of looks a little bit similar to the Majin logo from Dragon Ball. Yeah, if you guys do not know, Majin Buu and the Majins and all that. So Majin, Buu is just cool. Majin Buu is like one of my favorite, like I guess, well, villains at first, kind of ish, but then, you know, he's a good guy now. But either way, so this isn't the first time we've suspected that someone at Game Freak is a Dragon Ball Z fan, and rightfully so. So yeah, it looks like there's some connection right there, which would be cool, that the icon kind of has that Majin vibe going on for it with the shape of it. But yeah, it's interesting. Again, doesn't mean necessarily means anything or that it's directly connected. However, there are a few other theories though, like for example, Jordan saying that Gyarados was a clever choice. So you guys do not know, there's these like cloud shapes, right? And these cloud shapes, interestingly enough, could most likely be a hint towards how raids are going to work in these games. Because we already know from some of the leaks that there's going to be raids, if you guys don't know what I mean. Like, you guys, if you played Sword and Shield or, you know, Scarlet and Violet, like the raids are basically like the dens you can go into, or I think in like the crystal, like Terra raids or whatever you can do in Scarlet and Violet. So basically in this game, they're going to use these clouds shaped as different Pokemon specifically. However, an interesting detail is, right, they used Gyarados, which if you think about it, kind of makes sense, right, given its typing and everything, and given the names of the games. But also, if you look at the shape of it, right, the shape of it right here kind of looks like it's supposed to represent, I mean, again, maybe I'm just yapping here, but if you, I have this entire post about this, which I'm going to talk about from Pokemon Millennium, but if you look at the icons on like the characters' hats, like the two different versions of the characters, one shape of it looks kind of like a wave, and one looks like, looks like clouds or looks like wind. And here you could kind of argue a similar thing, winds and waves, right? Again, I'm just maybe yapping, maybe I'm just crazy, but here's what your dad says. So Gyarados was a clever choice, since the shape of it could suddenly morph into the gimmick symbol. I bet the gimmick reveal is also going to feature Gyarados, which would be kind of interesting since it was the first Pokemon we ever saw Dynamax 2, which, hey, always a possibility, right? That could be the case here. And it does kind of morph a little bit into the shape of the icon. I guess you can kind of see it right there. See, it does kind of morph into that. Like, it's not even that crazy to assume that this, like, could be the case. Like, look at that. It literally looks like it. I actually just took a screenshot real quick, but it just looks very similar to it, but it doesn't end there. Here we also have a post from none else than Soul, and we do also have this whole thingy right here from Jordan. It says, with Legends Galar reportedly on the horizon, which yes, that was a planned thing. Could there be a connection forged between these two gimmicks? We haven't had two regions connected like that since X and Y or ORAS, which again, it's a highly possible thing. However, here's what Soul has to say. Now, I'll admit I didn't zoom and enhance enough, but as some have pointed out, the gimmick / dragon sus cloud is in the Gen 10 artwork. Yep, might really be the third legendary, a cloud / rainbow dragon, or a flipped gimmick symbol. Please let it be a proper epic third legendary again. Don't forget how Terrapagos' eyes were in the Terra Crowns. Feels really similar, which yes, you can see it right there, and then skibbity bop bop, there you go, right? That's kind of what, like, at least that was a little bit of a hint. And here you can even see the shape of the cloud, again, being in the shape of a dragon, but I think it's Gyarados. Still think it's more likely Gyarados. And he had a whole thing here saying they passed the Gen 10 region art so fast in the trailer, so I went back to look, and there isn't much, just the winds and waves, I guess, but maybe maybe they went fast. But yeah, you can see the shape of the, again, the dragon shape, which kind of looks like Gyarados, or could be the new legendary. Again, either one is possible. However, now we're going to get to some of the crazy and fun stuff. So we're going to talk about what Pokemon Millennium has been saying. So this is where you're going to strap in and sit back and relax, and let's get into it. So I've spoken about this post before, and I already mentioned this at the start of the video, but as has been the case since X and Y, the Japanese logos of the games always hide the symbol that's later connected to the generation's main gimmick. The DNA symbol, X and Y, for Mega Evolution, the Mega symbol, obviously, Sun and Moon, Crystals, Z Crystals for Z moves, Sword and Shield, Galar Stadium and Dynamax used in competitions, and Scarlet and Violet Terra Crystals. So, the Japanese logo of Pokemon Winds and Waves also hides something, a symbol resembling an Omega sign. The symbol is surrounded by rainbow colors and seems to glow with white light, the same light found in Western logos as the title background. The symbol is definitely tied to the gimmick and some lore elements, and we'll talk about it soon. Again, we've already mentioned these things. Cool. Pokemon Millennium, by the way, they do great stuff. They make some really great theories. However, they have a bigger thing that they want to talk about, which is this post right here. So, analysis speculation. Now, continuing to analyze the Gen 10 logo and the game's names is worth considering their Japanese localization. In Japanese, the games are called Pocket Monsters Wind and Wave, but in katakana. On the official social media hashtag, they are flagged as the following: Pokemon Wind Wave. Now, let's look at how it's written in the official hashtags. In Japanese, these two types of pronunciations, kunyomi, native Japanese reading, and onyomi, Chinese-derived reading. If the kunyomi reading doesn't suggest anything beyond the official in-game name, the onyomi reading might hide some teaser or hidden meaning. The onyomi reading is more commonly used in metaphorical or abstract senses, with this reading being pronounced fuha, meaning problems, adversities, turbulence, or metaphorically, a storm. Now, at the end of the trailer, after the titles and the Pokemon Winds and Waves logo appears, for a few seconds we can hear a particular noise, deliberately left as a teaser for something. The noise is clearly a storm, with crashing waves and strong winds stirring them together, which, yes, keep in mind, winds and waves are sort of correlations of each other. Without winds, there are no waves. Without waves, there are no... It's kind of like, the motion of the ocean, baby. Like, the two are intrinsically connected. Winds and waves are connected together. And most likely, this game will feature some form of storms and things that will be happening. We know, based on some leaked documents, that there will be some level of environmental changes that will happen. And storms would be a really good way to add a dynamic feeling to the world of the game, right? That there's like storms that can randomly happen, and you gotta go through them or handle them or avoid them, and they will change the environment in some way. That actually would be really cool, but also them being caused by legendaries would add another element of like, wow. Now, on the official site, in the game's description, this line has been added. During this adventure, you'll be able to team up with all kinds of Pokemon to overcome both the difficult road ahead and even the forces of nature that you block your path at times. If it further emphasizes the adversity of nature, are we facing a storyline that will push us to confront storms from the forces of nature? Will the legendaries of Winds and Waves clash in a primordial battle, unleashing nature's wrath? A third legendary representing nature itself might step in to resolve this conflict, or the two forces of Winds and Waves have to fight against the natural-like Pokemon, the third legendary. What if it's the opposite? Instead of having a situation where Rayquaza comes down to quell the battle between, Groudon and Kyogre, we have a different one. It's actually, instead, these two coming in to stop the third legendary. I think that would be really cool and actually better. Now, before wrapping up this post, it's worth mentioning the black cloud visible in the trailer skies, a very evident black cloud which engineers associate with storms, but we'll talk about that in another post. Moving on though, there was actually like, let me see if we can find the original post here, what we're looking for. Gonna have to probably go to their profile real quick. But they had another post here, which is this one, right? So here's the big one. So winds and waves speculation. I don't know about you, but I'm becoming more and more convinced that the Gen 10 is building towards a conflict between winds and waves, a clash between natural forces with some kind of point of contact and or core to the govern them. All of it embodied by the Generation 10 legendaries. I try to combine the two symbols, as you can see right here. Again, the symbol is from one of the games, and the other symbol, I'm just in the way, literally. One symbol is from the winds version, and one is from the waves version, right? Now, the interesting thing is, the winds version has this icon that very much, in my opinion, looks very similar to like actually shape of wind, right? And the bottom logo is from Pokemon Waves version, which is very similar again. And they look oddly similar again to the gimmick symbol that we know about, right? We know that this is the gimmick symbol of the games, right? We know this is the gimmick symbol and what it's going to be. So again, they seem to be constantly hinting at it in different parts of this game, in different like sections of the game, so to say. But again, what are they trying to say here? Well, basically, I tried combining the two symbols, and it appears on the protagonist's uniform, and I noticed a certain resemblance to the symbol found in the Japanese logo, of course, the Majin symbol, which I already discussed in other posts, and I'll leave them in the comments. But what if the circle at the center of the symbol, six symbols, represents a sun, above the waves on one side and surrounded by wind on the other, the end of the storm, the control of natural forces? Or maybe I'm just letting my imagination run a little wild. Now, I don't know if necessarily it represents the sun. That is up for debate. It could also be the moon. Like, I'm just saying, the sun and the moon. I don't know. I mean, keep in mind, this is another game where we're going out into essentially like, you know, an island like theme, right? There's an island theme just like we had with Alola, an island theme. So that game had suns and moons, right? Solea, Lunala, all that. It's possible that what we're seeing in the middle here is both those things. It's a Pokemon that represents maybe both of those things in one, potentially. Like a third legendary that represents that. And maybe that's the same thing that it's in the center right here, right? The outside here, you know, the bottom here is the you know, the waves. The top here is the winds. And then the center is the core of it all. Again, we don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Again, this is all up for debate at this point. But I do like the idea of this. I like where this is kind of going. I'm not going to lie. Like, it's intriguing, to say the least. It's very, 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 very intriguing. And I do think Soul actually had a whole thing about this, like his actual own opinions, which we're going to see if we can find real quick here, because there is a few things we can add to it based on what he found there. But also, he did have this post right here. It is, again, about the clouds and all that. It says, I want to get technical. One of these is a rain cloud and the other isn't. Also, both are part of the reveal trailer alongside two seemingly version-exclusive Pikachus. Could they be two snake box legendaries for winds and waves? One at the beginning of the trailer and one at the end. The first lighter cloud could be the winds legendary. In my opinion, it looks like it has whiskers. Maybe it's a spiky winged head and spikes down its back. And the darker cloud is the waves legendary, in my opinion. It looks like it has a fishtail and bulbous snout. Yeah, that's I don't know. Maybe. But I still think personally it's Gyarados. Again, maybe I'm yapping, but I do kind of still agree on that side of things. I think I agree with Jordan more so, that it's most likely that. But again, you know, anything is possible. It could literally be either at this point. Like, who actually knows? We're going to have to wait and see and figure that out as we go. But for now, that's pretty much what we have in regards to that. I'm going to see if we can find another post here that actually goes a little bit deeper into some of this stuff, because I do think there's a little bit more that could be like added about this in particular that we didn't talk about in this video. But basically, if you guys are curious about this whole Majin form thing, the biggest takeaway you should have is this. Majin forms are basically aiming to be like kind of like a weird kind of thing where you have two different, like, not really weird. We've had this with Dynamax as well. So you guys know how Dynamax Pokemon, we have essentially regular Dynamax Pokemon, any Pokemon can Dynamax, right? And then we have the Gigantamaxes, which are different forms. So the similar thing is going to be happening here. And again, it all seems to connect at the end of the day. The legendaries, the Majin forms, all of it connects to nature. Nature itself, natural forces, winds, waves, storms, all that combined together. And if we take those two, right? Maybe the creation of the winds and waves is the storm Pokemon, a Pokemon that literally represents a storm itself. You know, not just the dark cloud that he mentioned mentions there. I don't think that's necessarily what it is. I think it's a combination of those two Pokemon, that they exist, and they essentially are the representations of those two things. And then the final Pokemon, the third legendary, would be the one in the center. That's the Pokemon of Calamity of some kind. Which again, you know how these Pokemon games go. They always have to have some sort of Calamity Pokemon that's the end-all, be-all, world destroyer and all that. You guys get it. You know how it is. But again, it just adds a lot. It really adds a lot to this whole thing. And I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions and theories and all that in the comment section down below. What do you think about it? Do you think it's worth taking a look at? Do you think there's any value to it? I'd love to know. The other one that he also had was this one right here. And here what we have instead is him kind of adding some of his own details or thoughts on the logo thing from None Else Then Sold. He says, not confirmed since part of the Waves icon isn't part of the gimmick icon, but it's a great theory. Now, I've been wanting to point out that yes, Winds and Waves have their own logo similar to Scarlet and Violet's Naranja Uva Academy. The logos are seen on the protagonist and the Chews, the Pikachus. It remains to be seen if the Resort and the Chews will be version exclusive like the protagonist, or if it will exist in both versions. It also remains to be seen if these logos will mean anything more than this as of right now. But yeah, he also does add here though that the parallel with the academies in Scarlet and Violet is definitely a great point of comparison, and it's something, this is from Millennium, I discussed in the analysis article coming out in the next few days. What remains unclear though is whether Winds and Waves will appear, both Wind and Wave will both appear in the same version. Might as well be looking at the Hoenn-like scenario with two opposing teams playing different roles depending on the version, which I think is, again, very possible because we are getting a lot of, again, island themes, a lot of connections to the past. It just makes sense. And if you think about it, actually, if you really think about it, this is very similar to Hoenn as well. So it's got Alola with the theming and vibe and all that, but also very much Hoenn with the whole environmental kind of element. Because keep in mind, in Hoenn, it's the same thing. You basically have essentially one Pokemon that is causing a calamity, earthquakes with, creating land, and another one that spreads ocean, right, and causes literal tsunamis. And here we have a similar thing going on, but except it's winds and waves. It's a little bit more subdued potentially. But again, it adds a lot of questions that could be asked, which I really think are intriguing. So yeah, that pretty much I think summarizes that. I don't know if I can really add much else. We'll talk more about Majin forms and stuff. I'll do another maybe massive video covering all these theories as well as all the leaks we know about it, if you guys want that. If you want that, comment hashtag Majin down below and I'll maybe do one of those. But that's pretty much going to be it for today's video, guys. If you did enjoy, drop a like down below and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out and bye-bye.